So, guys, I'm going to go straight into this because I want to talk about the best thing on Netflix currently, which is the Chris Rock special called Selective Outrage. Now, he has other specials on Netflix, so please do check them out. If you have not seen his most recent Selective Outrage, then I do not know where you have been, because it is amazing. He is savage. He talks about everything and anything, but most of all, he does talk about Will Smith and Jada Pinkett and the slap that he received from Will Smith last year at the Oscars. So that was Oscars 2022, and you may know that the Oscars was this weekend, and so actually it was almost a year that he came out with this special. So he has been sitting on this material. He did not say anything about the slap. He did not say anything on social media. He did not react. And then he came out just bam with this Netflix special almost a year later. And the man is banking, laughing all the way to the bank with his $40 million allegedly for this special. So congratulations, Chris Rock. You are a baller. You have showed everyone, and you have especially showed men, what it is to be a true man. Because Will Smith's reputation, his career is essentially destroyed. And Chris Rock has just walked away with a $40 million check. He is so clever that he kept quiet and just sat and marinated this. And then he came out with a banger, and better yet, he makes you watch the whole thing until the end. And so I'm going to play clips of what he says, and then we're going to comment.
Y'all know what happened to me, getting smacked by Suge Smith, and people like, did it hurt? It still hurts. I got summertime ringing in my ears. None of us have ever been interviewed by the person that cheated on us on television. Hey.
So he is referencing a interview that Jada Pinkett, who is Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett interviewed Will Smith on her Facebook show called the Red Roundtable Talk or something like that. So she interviews people around a red table. So she interviewed him, and they were talking about their marriage issues and a time when they say that they were separated, or they were at a really low point in their marriage, and Will Smith didn't want anything to do with her or whatever. And she then had an affair with a man called August Alsina, who is a friend of her son. So he's considerably younger than her. And apparently she was sort of comforting him and helping him through a difficult time, and he had some mental health issues or whatever. And then they ended up having a sexual relationship. And so obviously Jada had interviewed Will Smith, and that was obviously seen worldwide, and Will Smith's facial expressions were clearly distraught and humiliated, embarrassed, and in pain, whereas Jada's facial expressions was more like matter of fact, like, yeah, it was an entanglement. So she couldn't even say affair, she couldn't even say sexual relationship. She literally just was like an entanglement. She referred to it as an entanglement. And funnily enough, August Alsina then came out with a song using the term entanglement. But she just couldn't say the word, so she said entanglement. And so then the word entanglement just went everywhere, went viral, and everyone starts referring to entanglement.
Basically, we broke up.
And then what did you do, Jada?
Well, I think from there, as time went on, I got into a different kind of entanglement with August.
Entanglement?
Yes. Yes.
A relationship?
Yes, it was a relationship, absolutely.
So what Chris Rock is saying here is that everyone's been cheated on, but no one has been interviewed so publicly by the person that they were cheated on. So Will Smith was, and that basically it was just so embarrassing, so humiliating, and that people were calling Will Smith the B word publicly, and a lot of public figures were calling him the B word. And then, so obviously you have this man that's had an affair with your wife. You then have all these people calling you the B word. And who do you slap? You slap me.
I was sucking somebody else's dick. How did that make you feel? Everybody called that man a bitch. And who's he hit? Me. A nigga he know he could beat. That is some bitch ass shit. I've rooted for Will Smith my whole life. I root for this motherfucker, okay?
Yep, so did I, and I don't anymore.
And now I watch Emancipation just to see him get whooped. Got me rooting for Massa, okay? Now hit him again, Massa. Hit him again. You missed the spot, Massa. And a lot of people go, Chris, how come you didn't do nothing back? Because I got parents. That's why. And you know what my parents taught me? Don't fight in front of white people.
So that was obviously the end of his show. There is a lot more material, so please do watch the show. And these are obviously just clips that are all over YouTube, and people can only show certain clips because of copyright. So we haven't been able to show the whole thing, but go and watch it because it is just hilarious and it's so funny. So what I want to say about this is that I think that Chris Rock is a great example in this instance. So in the instance of when he was slapped by Will Smith, I think at that moment, he showed the world what it is to be a real man. I want to just show you, and please look away if this triggers you in any way, but I want to show you and remind you of what happened at the Oscars last year. So let me just show you a clip of Will Smith hitting Chris Rock. Please look away if this is triggering for you.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right? that was a nice one. Okay. I'm out here. Uh-oh, Richard. Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
Wow, dude.
Yes.
It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
I'm going to, okay? Okay. That was a greatest night in the history of television. Okay. Okay. So we are here to give a documentary out, to give an Oscar out for Best Documentary. Now, the beauty of documentaries, because they make...
Okay, so I'm going to pause it there for a moment because, oh God, I just remember that moment and it is just not at all sitting well with me. So, okay, so what I want to talk about is this, is that I think that Chris Rock in this moment was one of the greatest examples to men out there and to women out there as to what a real man is. Because Chris Rock is clearly smaller and skinnier than Will Smith. Will Smith is above 6 foot, I don't know, 6'4", 6'5", whatever. He's huge. Will Smith works out. Will Smith, as you remember, did the Muhammad Ali biography movie. So, you know, he's had some training in boxing and he's athletic and very strong. You know, he does action films, etc. Chris Rock is a comedian. He does animation, for God's sakes, okay? He does stand-up comedy. He's a skinny, weaker in strength, physical strength man than Will Smith. And Chris Rock was hired to present an Oscar for Best Documentary. He is a comedian. That is his job. That is what he's hired for. In the Oscars, in the Golden Globes, in the Emmys, people roast people, people make jokes. And he is a comedian and he is there to do that job. So he made jokes to many different people and over the many years, and he's not the only presenter to do so. And he made a joke of Jada Pinkett Smith, who's Will Smith's wife, and you will see that she has no hair. I don't know if he knows that she suffers from alopecia, and obviously that's a very serious thing, but he made a G.I. Jane joke, and a G.I. Jane is a movie that Demi Moore played someone in the army back in the day. I believe it was in the 90s, and she shaved her head, and it was all about female empowerment and the strength of women and her being in a male-dominated industry and her struggles and her fight. And it was a very... G.I. Jane is a very powerful person. So anyway, so he makes that joke on Jada, and you can see the time he makes the joke that Will Smith is smiling or at least laughing, and that Jada rolls her eyes. So he was there to do a job So he was there to do a job, and he did the job. And despite the fact that he had to stand there in front of his colleagues, he had to stand there on international TV worldwide in front of his family, his children, and get slapped across the face by another man. And he just stood there and took it. And then he had verbal abuse, screaming at him. He just took it twice, by the way. He had verbal abuse screamed at him. He just took it and he stood there. And then he continued to do his job. And you can see that he muddles his words. So he is shocked. But he carries on and he does his job. And then he leaves. And allegedly, the police were called. Allegedly, the police were saying, you know, they're going to remove Will Smith. But allegedly, Chris Rock said no. And he said, just leave him there. And he said no. And then Will Smith went on to accept his Oscar. It was his first Oscar. So it was essentially Will Smith's night. And it was completely ruined. And he got up on stage and apologized to the Academy, and he did not apologize to Chris Rock. And it wasn't until the next day, I believe. Also, after the Oscars, he went to the after party, danced away to his music, holding his Oscar with his family. And I believe his son tweeted something like, that's how we do, or something. And then it wasn't until the next day or 2 days after that he then did an Instagram apology or some apology on social media apologizing to Chris Rock. And then so forth within the year, he's done sort of various apologies and various sit-down interviews, sort of crying and talking about, you know, the space that he was in at the time. And it's all very, very, very sad. My take is this, is that no woman should ever expect their man to get up and act in such a way and in a violent way so publicly. You know, if you are being violently attacked, you're entitled to defend yourself. But just to get up in the presence of everybody and assault somebody, you know, this man has assaulted Chris Rock on TV in front of everyone's eyes, and he had no repercussions. And no woman should want that for their husband that they love dearly and want to be happy, because he could have potentially ended up in prison. He could have potentially ruined his whole career, and there is an argument whether he actually has. He's been banned from the Oscars, so obviously he didn't attend this year. And this is so unnecessary. For what? You know, Chris Rock and Will Smith could have had a conversation after. They could have had a social media war. Will Smith could have gone and accepted his award and spoke about alopecia and denounced what Chris Rock has said. He could have gone after when they have their press talks and, you know, when he's holding the Oscar and all the journalists ask him questions, and he could have spoke about alopecia, and he could have campaigned for it and brought awareness, and he could have denounced Chris Rock's joke. And Chris Rock would have looked like a fool. It would have been embarrassing. His joke would have been embarrassing. But unfortunately, the cause of those who are suffering alopecia has just totally been overshadowed. And Jada Pinkett's, you know, suffering and Will Smith suffering has totally gone overshadowed by what he did to Chris Rock. And in my view, Chris Rock's reputation and the respect that people show for Chris Rock has gone up. You know, Will Smith is a big man. He knows that he can take on Chris Rock. And so I don't know what was going on in his mind, that he felt that he had some sort of entitlement, some sort of right to get up on stage and slap this man. You know, Chris Rock has a mother. He's a father. Like, how dare you? What right do you have to go up and slap his face? You know, it then enrages other family members. You know, you feel that you're entitled to be angry because he took the mickey out of your wife's hair. Well, his family are entitled to be angry because you slapped him across his face. So what are they entitled to do? Are they entitled to come to your house and slap you across the face? I mean, I don't know if any of you saw, but his brother, Chris Rock's brother, did a stand-up, and he was angry. He was angry. You know, going, oh, you effing think you can slap my brother? You think that ever happened to me? Blah, 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 blah. You know, he went crazy.
You gonna hit my motherfucking brother? Cause your bitch gave you a side eye?
And that's the thing, is you would expect that type of response. You know, you can't sit there righteous, I'm going to slap this man because of what he says about my wife. Well, then people are entitled to, you know, if you're going to go by your narrative, then people are entitled to, you know, act towards you however they feel because of their emotions. You know, because this is the problem. I firmly believe that a strong man, a real man, is not a violent man. Don't get me wrong. If someone is attacking you, you're entitled to defend yourself. A real man protects his wife, his children, his family, his mother, his country. That's what a real man does. But a real man doesn't go out in the street like a hooligan, like a teenager going around making all these frivolous decisions where they end up with really severe consequences. A real man thinks about the consequences. He thinks about the impact on his family. He thinks about the impact on his children, the example he's setting for his children. He thinks about the impact on his wife. He thinks about the reputation of his family, of his parents, and how they raised him. He thinks about whether he would go to prison. He thinks about whether or not people will sue him and he could lose his home that his children live in, whether he could lose his livelihood that he uses to pay for food to go into his wife and his children's mouth, or to look after his mother. And men don't act like, a real man doesn't act like a fool because of his pride and his ego, and then everyone around him that depends on him suffers. That's not a real man. A real man isn't somebody who can't control his emotions, who sits there and is so offended and gets up in front of everyone looking like a fool and punches someone in the face or slaps someone in the face. That's not a real man, because that showed that he had no control, that he had a loss of control over a joke. Whereas Chris Rock showed how much control he had, how he went there to do a job and he finished it. He didn't do anything. He didn't react in any way. And better yet, for almost a whole year, he didn't react. And then he pocketed $40 million. And everyone is talking about his show. And you could tell when he did his bit that he was angry. He did not hold back. He did not come here to play. He was angry. And you can tell from his passion. You can also tell when you watch it properly and fully that he messes up some bits. And he even apologizes, I messed up that joke. Because he was just so in his emotions. He was so angry that it overcame him. But he did it in the right forum. He did it in his own show where he was banking. And that money goes to his family, goes to him. That is a real man who had control of himself. And Will Smith embarrassed himself. A real man is not somebody who turns to violence. It's not a man who cannot control himself because of whatever's going on in his life, because his woman cheated on him, because his mental health is low, because he's so stressed. When he was there to collect an Oscar, for God's sakes, that was supposed to be his night, and it was totally ruined. He ruined so many other people's nights. It was the first time that you had the Oscars being directed by a black man. It was the first time that a black man had won Best Documentary. It was the first time that Will Smith had won the Oscar, and he is a black man. It was the first time that you had 3 women hosting the show, some of which were women of color. So it was a huge night. And Will Smith destroyed it, because all that anyone was talking about was that slap. This part where Chris Rock is giving out the Oscar for the Best Documentary, it's to a black man, but the whole thing was missed. And that man's moment was overshadowed by this stupidness, by showing that you can't control yourself, Will Smith. And so I just think it's disgusting behavior, shameful behavior. How dare you pick on someone smaller than you? And how dare you not be able to control yourself? How dare you expose your weakness? But there we are. I felt so much for Chris Rock and his family. But I think Chris Rock has had the last laugh, because if you watch his Netflix special, the man does not hold back. He did not come to the playground to play no kids' games. So congratulations, Chris Rock. I admire you for the way that you've reacted to this incident, and I wish you all the best in your career. And apparently Will Smith has responded to the Netflix special. Apparently he has said he hasn't watched it, but that he's upset. And frankly, so what? So what? Good for you. It's not all about your feelings. It's not all about your wife's feelings. There are other individuals in the world, you know, and I think that's something that we lack. It's all about us. It's all about our feelings. It's all about our pride and our dignity, but we don't think about other people. We don't think, how is that person going to feel with my words? How is that other person going to feel with my actions? How is their mum going to feel? How's their son going to feel? How are their children going to feel? How is their wife going to feel? You know, I need to treat them exactly how I would want to be treated. How do I feel in that situation? And then this is how I'm now going to approach this situation. And I think that everyone can learn really important lessons from Chris Rock and Will Smith and this whole Oscar saga. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed my video. Please do subscribe so that I can grow this channel. Thank you guys so much. Okay, take care, guys, and I hope you have a really good week. Bye, guys.